So another thing that I see a lot that I think is stupid is videos and articles and whatever, about the Fermi paradox. This is stupid for a few reasons. Uh, One of them, right? Enrico Fermi was a physicist, not a cosmologist, not an astronomer, not an evolutionary scientist, not even like an anthropologist, nothing like this. Nothing. He's he built fucking nuclear bombs. That like he designed that shit. That's what he did. And like, yeah, you gotta be a smart dude. I couldn't fucking do that. Like, there's no way in hell I would ever be clever enough to do that shit. Dude's smart, but not in this area. Also, it was 19 goddamn 50. You know what was accepted as a human ancestor in 1950? Piltdown Man. For another 3 years, Piltdown Man was accepted as a human ancestor. Think about that. Some dude took, like, I think it was an orangutan jaw and a human cranium, jammed them together and, like, filed it down so that they fit. And when they were presented, like, 40 years before this, and I think it was 1912, some shit like that. Give or take a few years. Anyway, I don't have the information in front of me. I know it's more or less in that time, right? We presented this, and like a couple people right off the bat are like, "Dude, this is a fake," but because the scientific community, this played into an idea that they really, really liked. It played into their pet idea that human evolution occurred in Asia, not in Africa, or at the very least, it occurred first in Asia, and then like something else happened in Africa, so you got different. Yeah, dude, like in 1950, when Enrique Fermi is on the scene here talking about, oh yeah, where is everybody? Yeah, our sense of how the fuck humans even worked was ridiculous. Ridiculous. No. No. You cannot, as a physicist in 1950, being like, oh, I wonder where everybody is. That's not an actual question. It's just, that's not a paradox, right? Like, that's, God damn it. It's like a 5-year-old walking into a bank and saying, where's all the money? Like, you kind of understand some of it, but not enough to ask a good question. And certainly not enough, and you don't know enough to hear the answer. You're nowhere close to being able to understand the answer. And then everybody, like, okay, so I don't know if Fermi actually gave a shit about this, but he was talking to people, and somebody picked it up and was like, oh my god, the Fermi paradox. That's where it gets stupid. Like, oh, Fermi was a genius. Yeah, okay, the dude could like design a bomb to kill 1 billion people in 4 seconds, and okay. I understand these are the wrong numbers. I understand. It's called it's exaggeration. But it's a big ass bomb, and that was the point. Yeah, yeah. Fermi, smart, but in a specific area. Why are you giving him, oh, he knows everything? Why is this an interesting question? Where are all of the civilizations? You don't even know how the fuck civilization occurs. You don't know what is required for this. At all. At fucking all. right? We're sitting at a point in time, 1950. We're sitting at a point in time where there's no idea. Okay, so like, Dart, Robert, yeah, Tong Child, this guy. This guy, he's like, yeah, the guy that found Tong Child. He's like, yeah, no, I mean, Australopithecus. But science is like, no, Piltdown. Mm-mm. We got Piltdown in Asia. What is this shit in Africa? It looks like a chimpanzee. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. No, I mean, no. So chimp has these big ass, and these are actually pretty close in age. Like this, I think this was like a 3-year-old chimp, and Tong Child was somewhere in that ballpark age. Their brains are roughly this. Yeah, they're similarly sized animals. Their brains are roughly the same. Like they're actually pretty goddamn comparable. Yeah, no, there's a few differences. Like the chimp, he's got like no fucking cheeks. Tong Child, look at those cheeks, real prominent. Let's see how we turn this shit so you can see it. Like, look, chimpanzee, no cheeks. Tong Child, big ass cheeks. That's because he was talking. Well, he might have been too young to talk. But the species, they're talking to each other. Because what's happening here... So, do this with one hand. Because, oh my god. You can see it on my face. This arc. This circle that... Right? That is made right here. And woo, I don't even know where my face is. But I can't be looking at the camera. Okay. The bottom of the nose. This triangle that this makes, right? And you can see it very clearly in the holes. that triangle is very psychologically attractive. It draws your attention like a motherfucker. And this is extremely old. This pattern of drawing focus, of drawing your visual focus, is at least a third of a billion years old. Like, it's because it's found in birds and reptiles and mammals. It's shared between all of them. That means it has to come from their common ancestor, which would have been the original tetrapods, which was right around 350 million years ago, somewhere in that ballpark. A third of a billion years ago. This is old. This is old psychology. In mammals, or most mammals, not all. I mean, it's like a problem with horses. And like some groups of mammals, kind of the system broke a little bit, but for the most part, particularly smaller ball-shaped animals like rabbits and mice and, you know, shit like that. This triangle got duplicated, so there's two of them. There's two psychoactive images on your face as a mammal. And often it involves the ears and the nose, as well as the eyes and the nose. So you got kind of like a small face and a big face sort of image happening. But what happened with humans, and chimps have this too. Chimps, their two faces is the eyes to the nose and the ears to the nose. That's why they have gigantic ears. Gorillas don't do this. Their two faces are almost exactly superimposed. They're just very slightly different in size from each other. And this actually contributes to the way that their nose looks. It's like, right, so I have a partially 3D printed, God, that's heavy. Partially 3D printed Australopithecus, or no, Paranthropus. The 3D printer shit the bed. So I only have this part, but you can see these gigantic cheeks, right? These gigantic cheeks, and then you'd have the jaw down here. So you would have these three focal points. These two simulating eyes, right? Like playing into that old ancient psychological system. It's like focus on these triangles with it's top heavy. It's top heavy triangle with big circle things. And then at the chin, you have this round thing. right? So in humans, these big cheeks that we have, and the chin. And it's actually much more prominent in a woman than it is a man, especially a man with facial hair, for reasons that I don't think anybody fully understands. But yeah, so we've got this going on specifically to attract your attention to the mouth because they're talking to each other. You can actually see this is actual in the fossil, in the bones. There is an actual change that is occurring because they're talking to each other more. There's other changes too, like I can't fucking see anything with this camera. But the especially since these are children, it's not gonna show up as much. It shows up more in adults. So let's see. Let's try it with, yeah. So this is a Homo habilis, comes a little bit after Australopithecus. This cut right here, right? The orbit is pushed back, deeply pushed back. What this does is it makes your eyeballs much easier to see by other people, by other members of your group. It slightly improves your field of vision, but it also, like, it's what's giving you such prominent whites in your eyes. The fact that the orbit is pulled back, and now it's easier for other members of your community to tell what you're looking at, right? And then we still have these really prominent cheeks. So this is later, so this is even closer in time to us. You still have these really prominent cheeks, so we have something drawing visual attention to the mouth because they're talking, and the orbit, the side of the orbit being pulled back so that they can show off their eyes better and they can see each other a little bit better. Like, these are all things you can actually see in the fossils that contributed to us being us. None of this was known in 1950. None of this shit was known, right? So this goes back, I think, what your last common ancestor between chimps and humans is something like 14 million years ago. That wasn't known. The time frame for that wasn't known at all. And this seems to be one of the biggest, I mean, because really, like, other than the fact that Australopithecus is bipedal, really the main difference is, as far as like what's happening between a chimpanzee and an Australopithecus, is this what's happening here, like how this face is structured. The brain isn't very different, because you can actually take, and I've done this, you can actually take a 3D scan of a chimpanzee brain and put it into the casting of Tom Child, and it fits almost exactly. Like, they, as far as structurally, their brains are basically identical. So you have these evolutionary changes happening millions and millions of years ago, involved with talking to each other. Now, I don't think prior to Homo erectus, so this guy, prior to this guy, he would have been about as tall as me, right around 6 foot something. This is Turkana boy, and it is really hard to hold him because he's just falling all kinds of apart. Really prominent cheeks again, right? So we've got this really prominent triangle. We've got the prominent eye-nose triangle and the prominent cheek-chin triangle. Just like Paranthropus boisei. Really prominent cheeks. This is a distinctive feature in recent human ancestors, going back, from the separation with Pan. None of this shit was known. None of this shit was known in 1950. That we can actually look at, well, because you didn't have them yet, you can actually look at these skulls and see, hey, we're probably talking to each other millions of years ago, right? The idea at this point in 1950, in Fermi's time, especially as a physicist, because it's not his field, so he's not going to be privy to jack shit new information. He's going to be familiar-ish at most with crap from like 1890, like really old ass ideas, and probably not going to care too much even about that. Right? So he's, as far as human evolution is concerned, he's probably more or less a young Earth creationist. That's just where his mind is going to be. And you can even look at the way, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about human evolution, and it's still very. If you know what to look for, if you know what to listen for in what he's saying, it's still really evident that he has no fucking concept of how old humans are. Well, and you get, so like the consensus, right, is 200,000 years old for modern humans. Well, but I mean, if you take a look at these bones here, so this is Turkana boy. So he's just shy of 2 million years old. I have a modern human jaw that I 3D printed, and it fits. Really, the only thing that happened is the front of the face, the teeth, got pushed back a little bit. Well, if you're looking at it from an engineering standpoint, this is actually really cool. If we take these jaws and put them next to each other, you see that all of the muscle attachment points are in exactly the same spot. Right? Where the joints are, basically exactly the same. All of the muscle attachments are in the same exact spot. What's happening is this guy, the modern human, is lighter. It's lighter and it's closer in. So what does that do for you? That means that you're actually able to flap your jaw around faster, more efficiently, waste less energy, use less energy, right? Look at these teeth. The teeth are smaller, so they weigh less, so they're easier to move up and down. That costs less energy. But for this change to have happened, they had to have been exhibiting the behavior. I think Homo erectus was talking in full language 2 million years ago. And this change that we see in the physiology is the product of that behavior over time. The body is adapting to it. But the behavior is already here. And in much earlier animals, we have indications that at least a precursor to the behavior is here, because we have visual focus shifted down to the mouth, and we're keeping that very strongly, very, very strongly throughout humans. All humans, even frickin' Paranthropus, which is just bizarre looking. Also, any reconstruction of Paranthropus, so yeah, I kind of meant to mention this, where they put a nose on there that looks like a gorilla's nose. So this is why I pointed out gorillas. That's definitely wrong, because a gorilla's nose is specifically shaped to accommodate the two two faces. Right? One is the real eye nose, and the other one is the fake one that draws attention. And if you look at a woman's face, you can like a really beautiful woman, what is usually going to happen is very prominent round cheeks and a nicely defined chin. So you get, and if you take that and you transpose it up, it's the same exact triangle. It might be slightly bigger, like you might have to kind of scale it down to get it to match the eyes and nose, but it's the same exact triangle. It's less obvious on me. It's less obvious on men, especially with the facial hair. The facial hair interrupts it. And this is for... The reasons for it are... But why it's in men and women is kind of weird, because the gendering flipped at some point in human evolution. In some point, very probably actually since this guy. I was looking at this the other day, and Paranthropus seems to have the very highly gendered signals in the male, whereas humans have all of the highly gendered signals in the female. You know, like the hourglass hips. In gorillas, in like silverback gorillas, you see that actually in the males. Like when they stand up, they have white markings that gives them an hourglass shape on in the hip region, which means that that image, that visual image, that attraction to that image, has absolutely nothing to do with modern humans. It has absolutely nothing to do with women, actually. It has absolutely nothing to do with childbearing. So, like the childbearing hips thing, no, that's bullshit. This visual signal is much older than that, and it actually originated in males, and got flipped. Right? None of this shit was known to anyone when Fermi was like, "Where are they?" Right? It seems I'm sure like all of this crap I'm talking about is this huge tangent. But my point is, we know a lot more now about what went into human evolution than we did then. And we understand that the time depths involved here are much, much bigger than Fermi would have been assuming. Right? And we haven't even touched on, so how many generations of stars do you have to get enough elements, right, to actually produce life that can do what we do? You could probably get life in a very basic form earlier, but because you might not have enough, things like phosphorus or even sufficient amounts of oxygen to run fast metabolisms, even if you were on a path to technologically capable civilization, if you have this much slower metabolism, it's going to take you longer proportionally, at least. Right, or if your environment is a little bit colder, your metabolism will run slower and that will slow you down. Or, there's all kinds of things. And the oxygen that we breathe is produced by plants and other processes. So, right, because oxygen likes to interact with fucking everything. Likes to bind up with goddamn everything. Having like free oxygen, O2, just floating around, that's not normal. That's not just gonna happen. You have to have some metabolic process, probably. There's ways around that, but you're probably going to be looking at having some metabolic process, which means something has to have evolved to do that, to produce this as a waste product, and then something has to evolve to use that, and then you have to, like, there's a shit ton of time depth here that is required. And really, like, we've been technologically capable of doing anything with the what, in 1950 we hadn't sent anything into space yet. What the fuck is Fermi talking about? Where are they? At the time he proposed this problem, we hadn't done jack shit. We weren't there yet. How is he assuming that other people should have been there? That, like, it's not a paradox when you actually understand what the fuck you're doing. It's only a paradox if you don't know anything about anything. Which is the point. Like, yes, Fermi, smart dude, but this wasn't his field. And even if it was his field, this was not the time. And not enough was known by anyone. Right? Because you don't have Piltdown Man being debunked as a hoax until... So, Fermi was in 50... Piltdown was 53. Piltdown, the hoax, was 53, right? So, another 3 years after this, before Piltdown is debunked, Sputnik was in the late 50s. Right. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? Like, and anybody taking it seriously, in retrospect, why the fuck are you taking this seriously? Like, yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible question, but it's not a good question. Especially in retrospect. Oh, I felt like I was gonna go somewhere else with that, but yeah, fuck it. I don't know. I just don't understand. Oh yeah, yeah. So the nature of a paradox in itself means that you're you're saying stupid shit, right? I mean, you have a measurement saying, well, this is what's actually happening, and then you have an ideology saying, this is what I expect to happen, and they're not meshing up, right? And you're just stubbornly being like, oh, I have a paradox, I'm smart. No, you're an idiot. Your ideology is wrong. We can measure it. You're wrong. Stop saying the stupid shit. And yes, of course, this can be a tool. Like, okay, I was expecting this and we actually got this. Where did I fuck up? But that's not really what's being done with the Fermi paradox. It just kind of gets revamped as, oh, this is so cool. What? Let's do SETI research. Let's do, like, yeah, okay. But then you get people, like, sincerely talking about, maybe there's some great, super powerful civilization out there that just kills everybody, and that's why there's nobody out there. Like, you went full retard. What the fuck? No! The universe is probably not even old enough for there to be somebody else that we could detect. Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I was gonna go back even a little bit deeper than this. Okay, so we got all this bullshit with human ancestors, or like recent human ancestors. Recent, like in the last 10 million years. Uh, Ardipithecus is starting to show some of these features, but is actually more chimp-like. So you can actually see in the fossils that we have now. So that was what, late 90s, early 2000s. You can actually see in the fossils we have now, like a progression, like towards talking to each other in a much more concerted way than previously. But yeah, so we like to be like, look at parrots and ravens and mynah birds and all these guys and be like, whoa, they can talk. Yeah, bitch. They're actually why we can talk. Because the group of birds that they belong to, so, you know, they've diversified. But if you go back in time, up the evolutionary tree, they have a common ancestor something like 85 million years ago, plus or minus, fucking who knows, I don't know. I don't keep up on that one very much, but it's in that ballpark. It's before the extinction of the dinosaurs by something like at least 20 million years, right? So fucking long ago. They have a common ancestor. And this is notable because so pretty much everybody, all the birds in this group can learn to talk, sort of. So the fact that they all have a common ancestor 85 million years ago probably means that that common ancestor could also do that. 85 million years ago. They're not copying us, we're copying them. And there's even more evidence of this because, so like primates, diurnal primates, so not the nocturnal ones, diurnal, they're awake during the day, they, over almost their entire range on the planet, compete directly for food and living space with this group of birds. And you can see through the progression of evolution of diurnal primates. So like the most primitive ones are the most like rats. right? And the most advanced ones are the most like humans, and it does progress. There are a few little branches that go in weird ways, but for the most part, it does progress in a way where their capabilities are more closely approaching the capabilities of this group of birds, the psittacopasserines, including some that can sort of glide. Like they've developed, like they can jump really fucking far. Well, because these birds can fly. So in order to be competitive with them for food, you need to be able to move like them, basically. And you need to be able to socially organize like them, basically. And really, so comparing, if you take the communication systems and like look at all of what they're capable of doing, right, and you map that onto like a computational complexity, right? So we look at the computational complexity of all these communication systems. We're really only approaching like parrots, gray parrots, those kinds of guys, around in the great apes, right? Orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees are really the only ones that are like direct analogs as far as their capability. And it is, it's different, right? We have different brain architectures. There's a different evolutionary path. So there are absolutely differences, but overall, the general computational complexity of what a gray parrot can do with language like shit. So it's not language because it doesn't have certain features. So I reserve the term language for something that has a specific computational complexity. For me, the term language has an actual meaning. It's not just some like, oh, dogs have language because they bark at each other. No, fuck that. No. That makes the conversation impossible when language is that broad, right? Guppies have language because they flash their tails at each other. No! That's not language. That's communication. And it has certain features to it, and there's patterns, and there's structure, and there's all of these things, and we can look at that, and we can suss out its computational complexity and what it is capable of expressing and what it is not capable of expressing. But language is kind of at the top. It's up there. There are a few ways you could enhance what like human language. So like for instance, mathematics and programming languages are capable of a few things that humans are not great at. That we struggle very hard with. Like for instance, nesting, right? So you can say something like, look at that blue car. Pretty simple. Look at that blue car that I own. Now there's a nested structure. We took look at that blue car. Look at that blue car that I own. I own the blue car. I own the car inside this, right? So it's nested inside of it. And you can do this a couple times for human natural language. Natural language. I have problems with that term, but yeah, for natural language, we can do this a couple times. But really past about 3 or so, you lose it. You fucking lose track of it, and you just got to start over. With math, you can just do it forever. With programming languages, you can do it forever, as long as it can fit in the computer's memory space. And that's really the thing, is the memory space that we have, so we can model this to a computer. Like, the brain is not a computer. It's sure, whatever. But you can model it. It behaves in certain ways that are, we can look at this in a meaningful analog. Yeah, your brain's not a computer, but it fucking acts like one, so fuck off. God damn it. This went in a lot of directions I wasn't really expecting to. Anyway, yeah, so you can have, as long as the computer can keep track of, you can have thousands and thousands of nested structures inside this one, and it can keep track of that outside that first one. And this is one of the great powers of a computer. This is really, I mean, the way that you can play a video game. Oh my God, the context that it is managing simultaneously is obscene. That is, you know, and that is the power of a computer, that it can do this. We can only handle like 3, 4, maybe 5 if they're simple enough. It's like really outside fringe capabilities right there. You know, you can do that many. That's it. That's it. That's what a human being is capable of. So yeah, there's room for improvement, like future evolution or development of humans. Yes, we could have communication systems that are slightly more capable technically, but we're actually at the edge. We're actually, you know, a language is really pretty much the limit of like that's as far as it can go. But we were brought here by fucking birds. That wasn't known in 1950. And the birds have been able to do it for 85 million years, and they've never made that leap from where they are to where we are. And it's not a very big leap, but it even took us probably something on the order of 10 million years from something like a chimpanzee or a gorilla to Homo erectus, maybe Homo habilis, maybe. But I feel like by the time we get to this guy, we're there. It's there. They were probably less capable with it, so like maybe their simultaneous contexts could be 2. So they could only have one nested structure. But even if you can't have any nested structures, and this is like nested sentences, right? I'm not talking about fucking minimalist theory where everything is sweet shit. Everything is analyzed as a nested structure. No, that's bullshit. No, that's not how it's actually working. Yeah, I mean, they might have been stuck at 2. But even if you're only stuck at 1, and there are actually languages that do this very, very strongly, if not strictly, like Pirahan. Yeah, which is fantastic. What you can do is you just say one thing, and then you say you can refer to it with the next thing. That's what pronouns are for. So you can just take 5 sentences, and instead of like cramming them into one space, you just stretch them out, and you say them one at a time, and it accomplishes the same thing, and it's fine. Because once it goes into memory, the structure doesn't matter. I mean, you can demonstrate that a lab rat, a mouse, or a rabbit, once it's in memory, they can handle the nesting of those structures. That's fine in memory. It's a working memory. Handling it live, that's where it becomes a problem. This wasn't known in 1950. None of this shit was known in 1950. Right? What does it mean to be intelligent? I don't know. I've spent a lot of my life researching this shit at a pretty high level, and you say something like, "Oh, intelligent life." I don't know what the fuck you just said to me. That's completely nonsense as far as I'm concerned, because you don't know what you're saying. I know you don't know what you're saying. I don't know. I don't even know what you think you're saying. Like, what the fuck? It's a nonsense term. Even now, with lots more knowledge than was available in 1950. So the Fermi paradox, it's just bullshit from, in every regard. It should not be taken seriously. It's not interesting. It's a paradox, for fuck's sake. And when you have a paradox, it means you're not thinking about it right. That's what a paradox is. We have a measurement. There's nobody else. If you're expecting that there was somebody else, then your expectations were wrong. Get over it. Fuck off. Oh, can I leave it on a nicer note than that? No, fuck off.